So now, in this case, for instance, C will stand for cool. All right? So then you'll know that. Now, there's also a W, which stands for warm, and then an N, which, who can guess out there what the N would stand? Neutral, that's right. Then the number at the end represents the intensity of the shade. Do you get it? So as the numbers go up, the intensity goes up. For example, the lightest shade in ivory would be ivory C100, and then the deepest shade in ivory is ivory N160. To me, this is really more intuitive, and it makes you find it really easy to find the perfect match for your customers. Naming shades this way is really something that's being done throughout the beauty industry, so it absolutely makes sense for Mary Kay to be moving in this direction. So, go Mary Kay! Yes! By using the IntelliMatch technology, these new foundations ensure a more precise foundation match. And that's what we all want. Now, it's very possible that with this new formula, your customers will even find a better match that they've been wearing. How do you like that? So the reason for this is that it's possible to be wearing a foundation that is the correct shade, but the incorrect undertone. Now that can result in washed out, ashy, or sallow looking skin. We don't want that, right? No sallow looking skin. So now you have a great reason to pick up the phone, to email, or to reach out to your customers and rematch them. All right? So let's talk about undertone for a second. Undertone is the color that exists just beneath the skin. We all have it. A person's undertone really never changes. It's classified in 3 different categories: cool, warm, and neutral. So undertone is different than skin tone. That's all you need to remember. Undertone is different than skin tone. Skin tone refers to the intensity of a person's skin, which would be classified as, let's say, light, medium, or dark, or in the case of foundation shades, ivory, beige, or bronze. And skin tone, unlike undertone, can change based mostly on sun exposure. So that's how we're going to help you figure out what that undertone is. It's important to understand the difference between those 2 things when finding your customer's perfect shade match. Now, there's also a common myth that if you have fair skin, you can't have a warm undertone. That's not necessarily true. Or, here's another one that I hear a lot: if you have dark skin, you can't have a cool undertone. That is actually incorrect. Your skin tone does not dictate your undertone. Now, there are a few methods to figuring out your undertone. And if you're confused a little bit already, trust me, as a makeup artist who's been doing this for almost 30 years, it's something that we all have to deal with all the time, because the goal is to have perfect skin. So the method I find to be the most reliable is to look to see if she has a pink hue or redness in the skin. That's pretty easy to figure out. And ask if she tends to burn easily. In that case, she's a cool undertone. So remember, if she burns easily, if her skin is pink, then she's a cool undertone. If her skin appears yellow or she tans easily, then she's let's guess, a warm undertone. Exactly. Then you have those people that you just can't figure out what they are, right? So I would tell you that for those people that fall in the middle and don't have redness or yellow in the skin, then you might want to consider them neutral undertones, or at least start that way. That's the best thing to do. Now, for someone with bronze skin, you still want to ask the same questions about how her skin responds to the sun. It's still very important. Depending on how dark her skin is, she might not be able to say there's noticeable pink in her skin after time in the sun, but she may notice redness. So even if she's a bronze shade, she will still notice a little bit of redness in her skin. If, for instance, she tells you she rarely burns and her skin tone just deepens, then she definitely has that warm undertone. If her skin tone stays mostly the same all year, she has a cool undertone. If she sometimes burns and her skin tone deepens afterwards, she has a neutral undertone. Okay? Are you ready to see these foundations in action? Yes? Are you ready? So I have Rochelle here, and tell me what happens when you are in the sun.
Normally I always burn.
Yeah.
And then my skin goes back to the same color.
Okay.
And I got a lot more freckles added.
More freckles. You gain more freckles. Well, so I would say that Rochelle, and definitely she's in the ivory territory, and I will take 3 ivory shades that I've sort of guessed that closely match her skin tone. Now, I want to tell you that I'm looking at her from the side, and I'm also looking at this area of the neck. Now, a lot of people seem to look at this area underneath the neck, but just remember that that area gets shaded. So this area right here will usually be lighter than that because it has shade from the sun. So we want to look at this area and we want to look at the neck. So let's do some ivory stripe test here. So first, I'm gonna do this one. Doing it with the applicator, or if she does it with her finger, usually works well. I would just recommend that she doesn't use too much, and that we definitely give the foundation a dry time. Meaning, you want about 15 seconds in between so that it dries. I mean, how many of you know that when you put on a foundation, it sort of changes after a little bit? So you want to give it a little bit of time. All right, so here are 3 ivory shades, okay? So we let them sit there, we give it about 15 seconds, and then I would say, Miss Rochelle, let's see, look over this way. Look over at me, yes, okay, and now look over there. So I would say that this first line right here is probably going to be the one that starts to basically disappear into her skin, just so that it looks all even. The goal is, ladies, is that you don't want to have a face that doesn't match the rest of your body, right? So don't just look at the face, make sure you look also at this part of your body. So I would say that Rochelle, and after what you told me, you are an ivory with cool undertone and a shade match of Ivory C110. Are you going to remember that? Ivory C110. All right, let's switch around. Yes, thank you. Okay, so now we have Miss Courtney. Oh boy, Courtney, tell me what happens in the sun.
So in the sun, I get really tan, especially in the summertime.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like 2 different people, winter and summer.
And you get tan, do you get a little red or just always tan? Just tan. Go right to tan?
Yeah.
Okay, so you do have ivory to your skin, but because she tans, I'm going to say she's warm, right? Because she will tan. So let's try some warm shades. I'm going to use them here. Now, one thing I can tell you about the stripe test is make sure that you don't do it, maybe think of the end of the eye here, this corner, outer corner of the eye as your guide, and don't do the stripe test beyond that, because once again, we want to concentrate with this area to make sure that it's all an even match. All right, so here's the second stripe test. You know what I like about this is that everyone doing it, or even when they're doing it on themselves, they look so professional doing it. And that's what it's all about, right? We all look very professional doing it. Okay, here we go. So here's another one. All right, let's see. So we let them sort of just sit there for a moment. and then we start trying to figure out which one goes away into her skin. Now let me ask you guys, is it this one? Oh my God, they got it. Yes, they said. So that one, they got it. I was gonna ask about all three. So she's an ivory with warm undertone, and her shade match is Ivory W130. Would you please remember that? So you can go get that one. Ivory W130. All right? So what happens when you go out in the sun?
I tan very easily.
You just bronze.
Absolutely right.
Wow. Okay. So that definitely tells us that you're beige and warm. So again, I'm going to try these. Let me do it with the finger this time so that you see the difference. A couple of things about when you're having your clients doing it with the fingers. Of course, make sure that their fingers are clean. Of course, make sure, once again, that they don't apply too much, and that when they're putting on the stripes, to make sure that they use about the same amount of product each time, because you don't want to use too much of one, because it's going to be obviously the wrong shade. Can we just talk about how beautiful these shades look already? They're like such a beautiful skin tone, and on top of that, they have all the 3D skincare benefits. Okay, so there we have 3. So we're gonna let it sort of work with her skin a little bit. It's like skincare, right? So you need it to just sort of do what it's supposed to do, especially when it comes to this